First, I want to thank Father Juan Pablo of the St. John Society for being here this weekend. He is up in Portland and is the director of the Newman Center Ministry at Portland State. So it's really good to have him here. Father Matthias will be here on Tuesday. Argentina is a long way away, and it takes a long time to get here. But he will be at Masses next weekend. But in the meantime, we're very glad to have Father Juan Pablo. A few weeks ago, there was this all-day English department meeting at Oregon State. They call it a retreat, but it's basically a 6-hour meeting at OSU. And, we're making plans for the new school year and getting everything ready. And everybody was talking and sharing their news and talking about all the great things they were doing. And I was just besieged with envy and jealousy, like the disciples today who resent James and John for receiving what they think are special favors. I was just full of envy. It really surprised me. My colleagues were getting all these grants, and winning all these awards. And I was just sitting in the back, green with envy. I wanted to win the awards. I wanted the recognition. I felt this so strongly, it confused me. It wasn't until several days later that I realized my sin wasn't just the sin of envy, but the sin of not wanting to admit it. This is the greatest sin of all, not to want to be a sinner. The greatest sin of all is not wanting to be a sinner. I keep thinking I'm beyond all this. I've transcended all of this. I go to Mass. I pray. I'm a deacon for the love of God. And I'm getting older, and I'm supposed to be getting wiser. And yet again and again I find that I'm a sinner after all. And that just embarrasses me and humbles me. Good. To be a servant, to want to be a servant, to have the love and the compassion that Jesus calls us to today, we first have to accept the fact that we can't make ourselves feel that way. Love like that is a gift, and we can only receive it when we first realize that we need it. And the funny thing is that as soon as I did admit this to myself, did admit that I was envious and lacking in love at that meeting, at the very minute I said, yes, that's true, I was released from the envy. It dropped away, or it lightened at least, and I was able to go back in my mind and think about how talented those people are and how good they are, and to rejoice in that, to rejoice in them. This last summer, I was going through a box of things from my childhood, and I found an award that I had received. It was a certificate of recognition from a vacation Bible school class that I went to at a Lutheran church in Malta, Montana. And here's what the certificate says. I'm going to read it to you exactly. In recognition of faithful attendance and creditable work, signed Velma Sutton and the Reverend James Prophet, June 30th, 1961. I was 6 years old. Now there's an award. That's recognition. And we can all receive it. It's an award for attendance. And we can all attend. On the left of the certificate, there's a picture of Jesus the Good Shepherd coming towards us with a small flock of sheep. It's the kind of picture I'm sure you've seen before in Sunday school or a children's Bible. Jesus is soft focus with long brown hair and soft eyes, and the sheep are fluffy and white. And Jesus just seems so strong and kind. He's holding a little lamb in his arms. And looking at it, I felt a pang of longing for that feeling I had when I was a kid and thought of Jesus. That trust and that happiness. And why not? Isn't that what we are called to? to humble ourselves, to let ourselves be sheep so we can have a shepherd. We have to come to God as little children, the gospel's been telling us the last few weeks. And isn't that especially important for English professors? For all of us who think we are so sophisticated and so intellectual and so mature? Yes, to follow Jesus means that we have to drink from his cup. And his cup is a cup of suffering. It's an entering into the sadness and complexity and incompleteness of the world and of ourselves. And that's terribly hard. That means letting go of all our childish fantasies of glory. But that's not all there is. That's not the end. It's a means to an end. And the end is joy. The crucifixion leads to the resurrection. It's through affliction, Isaiah says today, that we see the light in fullness of days. The purpose of voluntary poverty is not to make us miserable. It's to create a space in which there's room for everything. And then just last week in Rome, the church canonized 7 people, including Pope Paul VI and Archbishop Oscar Romero. The church gave them a really big certificate of recognition. It made them saints. But not because they published a lot of books or because they'd made a lot of money, but because they all served. Served God, served others. Pope Paul VI, because as Pope Francis emphasized in his homily, Pope Paul VI promoted the preferential option for the poor, one of the most central doctrines in our tradition. And Archbishop Romero of El Salvador, because over time he came to identify with the poor and the oppressed people of his country and to resist the tyranny of the Salvadoran government, to the point that finally he was assassinated during Mass after he finished his homily and was walking towards the altar. At the canonization Mass, which just a week ago today, October 14th, at the canonization Mass, Pope Francis wore both the vestments of St. Paul VI and the bloody cincture of St. Oscar Romero, the rope belt he was wearing around his waist when he was gunned down. Somebody came into Mass and shot him because he was standing up for the poor. I have a special admiration for Oscar Romero. I guess because I don't think I could ever be like him, ever have that kind of courage. But then I don't think Romero would say that he had that kind of courage either. I think he would say it was given to him. It was a gift. In fact, for years I've carried around this special Oscar Romero quote. It just means a lot to me. I love it. I love it for its spirit of humility, for its challenge, and yet its feeling of reassurance. So this is the quotation from Oscar Romero, now Saint Oscar Romero. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace, to enter and do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the workers. We are workers, not the master builder. Ministers, not messiahs. We are prophets of a future, not our own. That's the quote. If we are called in our joy to serve the homeless, we should serve the homeless. If we are called in our joy to pray, we should pray. If we are called to write or to quilt or to program computers, That's what we should do. We don't have to do everything, and we can't. We are the workers, not the master builder, the sheep, not the shepherd. We are all known. We are all loved for who we really are. And we have only to recognize this ourselves to be liberated, to be freed, walking with the rest of the flock in that children's book picture. Jesus before us, young and strong and smiling, the grass beneath our feet and the trees behind us, the sky full of pure white clouds. Of the kindness of the Lord, the earth is full, the psalmist says today. See, the eyes of the Lord are upon those who fear him, upon those who hope for his kindness. The eyes of the Lord are upon us. Jesus recognizes us. Jesus turns his gaze on us, on all of us.